What's going on, everybody? This is the Daily Fantasy Show brought to you by DFO. It is Tuesday, November 7th. We have a 9-game slate tonight. Yesterday was kind of interesting. Both Vegas and Vancouver were kind of letdowns. All the goalies kind of sucked except for Connor Hellebuck. Winnipeg won, Rangers won. I don't know if you can fit them. I kind of just closed the laptop. But if you could fit them in, they were the play with Hellebuck. Yay. Tonight we got a 9-game slate. We have a couple nice GPPs. We have the line change, $33 on DK. I'm going to assume FanDuel has a similar one as well. Admittedly, I didn't open FanDuel today, but I wrote a Stacks article. You can check that out. It's free. 80's line matching article is still premium. So let's hop to it. First game of the night, we have the Washington Capitals traveling to Buffalo to face the Sabres. Washington is on a back-to-back. They won last night at home, beating the Coyotes in overtime. It's going to be Robin Lehner and probably Philip Grubauer. It's not confirmed yet, but one would assume it's going to be Grubauer. From a defensive standpoint, this game is just a tire fire. Let's talk about the Sabres first. I really like the Sabres top line tonight. Eichel, Evander Kane, and Jason Pominville. They are expensive. I think they are the most expensive line to stack tonight. Evander Kane is overpriced at $7,000, but there are some value lines that you can, use tonight to get them in. The Capitals are very poor defensively. They take a downgrade if it's not Holtby in net. They are on a back-to-back. They traveled last night. They're going to get the Ovechkin line, which is terrible defensively. If you read the article, the Ovechkin line gives up 43 shot attempts per 60, and they give up 17 high-danger scoring chances per 60, which is insanely high. I really like the top line for Buffalo tonight. Rasmus Ristolainen is still out. Marco Scandella at 3,700 is on the top power play. He's going to play probably close to 30 minutes tonight, so he's a decent play at 3,700. It does worry me that Buffalo's defense is absolutely terrible. Leonard, they got wrecked by the Stars last time out. And the Stars only put 13 shots on goal, 15 shots on goal. But again, Washington is poor defensively, so Buffalo isn't the most expensive. Edmonton's the most expensive, but they are up there. They're the second most expensive line tonight. I think with Pittsburgh, Edmonton, St. Louis, the Islanders, even Washington, teams like that, Carolina, I think, Buffalo, St. Louis, Buffalo might go a little bit under the radar. I would assume Jack Eichel as a single bullet is going to garner some ownership. But that full line as a whole, especially because Evander Kane is 7,000, I think that line stacked as a whole will be pretty low owned, and I think this is a very good spot for them. Obviously, you don't have to worry about them giving up goals because you don't lose anything. Plus and minus is not a stat anymore. On the Washington side, both top lines are definitely in play for me. I'm going to go with the Ovechkin line. Again, it's a personal preference, really. Buffalo is just really bad. Defensively, their best defensemen are out. Last game, the top defensive pair was Marco Scandella and Justin, not Falk. Whatever. Falk. There's no U, not the Carolina guy. It's just brutal. Again, I am not a huge fan of back-to-back on the road, but if you're hell bent on the Capitals tonight, this is a good spot to target, even though they are on a back-to-back. Buffalo is like, their defense is like, wouldn't even be good in the ECHL. It's that brutal right now. Um, Robin Lehner's getting hung out to dry. So personal preference for me for the top six, slightly into Ovechkin. In net, I have zero interest in either of these goalies tonight. Leonard at 7,200. It just, until Buffalo can actually defend a little bit, I'm going to avoid Robin Leonard. I don't want to, if it is Holtby on a back-to-back, I don't want to target him at 7,900. Grubauer at 7,700 is too expensive for me as a backup with that poor defense, so I'm going to take a pass there as well. So let's move to the second game of the night. We have the St. Louis Blues traveling to New Jersey to face the Devils. Vladimir Tarasenko is a game-time decision, but I think that was this morning. He's probably going to play tonight more than likely, and that puts the top line for St. Louis firmly in play for me. They're one of my favorite lines tonight. Braden Shen, Jaden Schwartz, Vladimir Tarasenko. Their possession numbers are excellent. They're over 60% possession, which just generates more scoring chances. Another thing I like about that line is they also all are on the top power play unit, with which just, they get more ice time together. They don't really, New Jersey, Hines doesn't really match up at home, but just because of their possession numbers, whoever they match up with doesn't really matter to me. They are one of my top plays tonight. If you could fit Alex Pietrangelo at 6,700, definitely do it. And I've built a few lineups where I get St. Louis and him in, St. Louis one and him in. If you can't, Colton Pyarko is a decent value at 4,200. Again, depth lines for St. Louis 2. It's an interesting play. They're, cheap to stack, but again, they don't shoot the puck enough for me. If you want to use them, okay. I mean, they let you, they're a little under 14,000 the full stack. They'll let you get in an expensive line. But for me, they don't shoot the puck enough to target in cash, and they definitely don't. And it's just the same reasons for me in GPP. I think there's better value tonight if you're going to go to that cheap of a secondary line. If you're using St. Louis Blues, Jake Allen at 7,500 is confirmed that he is in play for me. I heard that Tarasenko is in tonight. Coach Mike Yeo said that he's in. He's still a game-time decision, so monitor warm-ups, check daily face-off. They'll have updates. If you're using St. Louis, Jake Allen's definitely in play. I think he's in play anyway. I know the Devils can score in bunches, and the Taylor Hall line's elite because of Taylor Hall, but New Jersey's coming back from a long Western Canadian road trip. They might have some tired legs. I think Jake Allen's in play tonight. From the New Jersey side, I don't really have too much interest in the Devils tonight. They're getting up there in price. Or Taylor Hall. By the way, I'm taking back. Markstrom wasn't terrible last night compared to the other goalies, but he definitely didn't perform to what he should have. New Jersey doesn't really interest me too much tonight. Taylor Hall's up to 7,500. That's a little expensive for a single bullet. Nico Heischer's 5,100. Drew Stafford's still reasonably priced, but I think the Blues are a sound physical defensive team. I think there's better options to go than New Jersey tonight. They are fairly cheap, the top line. They are middle of a road GPP play for me. If you're throwing a lot of lineups out there and you want to have a couple New Jersey, okay. But for me, it's more of a fade from me. Depends who starts in net. I've really no interest in Keith Kincaid. Corey Schneider at 7,700 I'd have minimal interest in. I think you can take a flyer on him in a GPP or something. It's a great matchup facing the Blues tonight. So let's move on to the next game of the night. We have the Edmonton Oilers traveling to New York to Long Island to face the Islanders, well, to Brooklyn. I guess that's on Long Island. You can argue technicalities with me later. This is an interesting game for me from an ownership standpoint. I think both top lines are firmly in play. The McDavid line is going to go up against the Tavares line. Both are not very good defensively. I forget who posted it, but the Edmonton 1 got wrecked by Detroit. Yeah, Brooklyn confirmed on Long Island. Yes, I know. I was having a mental moment. Edmonton 1 got wrecked by Detroit. The Islanders 1 has been an elite line. I think they're firmly in play. My favorite line in this game is New York Islanders 2. They're my favorite value line tonight. I think they will not get as high ownership as, say, Montreal's second line. They're similar in price. Matt Barzal may see some high ownership, above 10%. Same with Jordan Eberle, but Ladd will be very low. He's 3,400. So that line as a whole, I am wrong. I'm usually wrong. What am I wrong about? Tell me what I'm wrong about. I'll just continue until you tell me what I'm wrong about. I think, chalk New York Islanders too. I think, honestly, Montreal 2 is going to be higher owned, but they're both going to have some ownership. The thing is, Andrew Ladd is not going to have a lot of ownership. So if you're going to use the second line for the Islanders, use Ladd. That line as a whole will be lower owned than Montreal 2 as a whole. I think between Montreal 2 and New York Islanders 2, I think Matt Barzal will be the highest owned of the 6 skaters. But that line as a whole will be lower than Montreal 2. Is that a fair compromise? Because not too many people will be on Ladd. He's 3,400. He does see power play 2 time. You're just grouchy. But now I lost my train of thought. Anyway, if you're going to use the Islanders, I think you can definitely make a case for the top line of the Islanders as well. They are getting up there in price. Anders Lee, 6,400, didn't really do too much the past few games. But matching up against Edmonton 1 is a good matchup. They're pretty poor defensively. On the flip side, Edmonton 1 is definitely in play. The Islanders are a better defensive team at home. That doesn't mean they're good defensively. They're still pretty poor defensively. I know they gave up 4 goals to the Avalanche. 2 were in the final 30 seconds. But they, for a short-handed Avalanche team who are missing Duchesne, who got traded in the middle of the first period, and Blake Como, who took a puck to the dome, for a team basically playing 3 lines, they gave up a bunch of scoring chances. I think that definitely puts Edmonton 1 into play. They are the most expensive line of the night. They're almost 21,000 to full stack, so you're definitely going to have to get creative. That makes it very hard to fit Clefbaum in on the blue line at 5,800. Darnell Nurse is arguably their best defender right now. He's 3,600. He's a nice play. Other than that, on the blue line, the guy that I like tonight, because I punt defensemen more often than not, Matt Benning at 3,100 is in play for me if you need the salary relief, stacking the Oilers. And on the Islanders side, if you are using the top line or even the second line, Nicoletti. Nicoletti makes more sense for the top line. He correlates on the power play. I know Barzal is on the top power play as well, but Benning, I believe, is on power play too. I just have to double check that, but he's been playing really well. If you're using New York Islanders too, Barzal is on the top power play. Eberle and Ladd are on the second, so my preferred play for that would be Johnny Boychuk. He's $900 cheaper. He also sees top pair minutes with Letty, so. In net, it's Talbot against Grice. I really don't have too much interest in Cam Talbot. I think the Islanders are an elite offensive team at home. Thomas, whatever he goes by, Thomas Grice at 7,700 is an interesting play for me. I think you can make a case for him. He did play decent against the Avs. I think the more ice time he sees, the better he can get. I think Grice is in play as a GPP-only play. So let's move on to the next game of the night. We have the Arizona Coyotes traveling to Pittsburgh to face the Penguins. The Coyotes are on a back-to-back after losing in overtime to the Capitals. It's probably going to be Matt Murray for the Penguins, and it's Antti Ranta for the Yotes. So Pittsburgh is definitely going to be chalk tonight. Like, that's without a doubt. Both the top six, Pittsburgh 1, Pittsburgh 2, definitely elite plays. They are going to eat ownership up from each other, but as a whole, Pittsburgh's going to have a ton of ownership. This is really a matter of preference, as they're both pretty much the same price. For me, if I have a toss-up, who is the best player on the ice? That's Sidney Crosby. I have a slight lean to the Crosby line. Obviously, I have no issue with the Malkin line. Again, I fade Pittsburgh all the time, and it's just a disaster. But when I do use Pittsburgh, I like to use their power play. I know Arizona doesn't take many penalties. They did take a bunch last night. I think they took 4 or 5. It is expensive to stack their power play, but I think it's a nice way to differentiate yourselves from just people just stacking Pittsburgh, like a singular line from Pittsburgh. What's his name? Justin Schultz may be back tonight. I know he skated this morning. I haven't seen news on him since this morning. If you can fit Letang at 3,200, do it. Ole Mata at 4,000 is a nice play if Schultz is still out. If Schultz is back, he is a nice value at 3,500. On the Arizona side, I know they're on a back-to-back, but Pittsburgh is one of the worst teams defensively in the league. Their depth in the bottom 6 is just poor. They also loaded up their top 2 lines, so if Arizona they probably won't avoid the top defensive matchups, but still, if you're into using teams back-to-back on the road, I think Arizona 1 is a solid play. They are cheap. Clayton Keller is definitely the front runner for the Calder this early in the season. He has 17 points, 11 goals, 6 assists. I think the next closest person on the Coyotes has 4 goals, which just says all you need to know about Clayton Keller. That definitely puts that line in play. I think Oliver Ekman-Larsson's also in play at 4,500. I think he's a really good value. Still too cheap for him. Jason Demers also sees a ton of ice time at 3,900. In net, 8,300 for Matt Murray is a tough price for me to swallow, just for the same reasons that Braden Holtby was 8,300 yesterday. Even if you think he is the nut goalie matchup, which I don't think he is because Pittsburgh is not great defensively, you really need to get a shutout for you to hit value at 8,300. If you give up 2 goals on 25 shots, that's a 7.6 point win. I think that won't be the top goalie scorer of the night, and you're burning salary where you don't really need to. That's just a personal preference of mine. I prefer spending $7,500 and down for a goalie. Matt Murray is good. He has the ability to shut out the Coyotes, who are a poor team. But again, especially, if you want to use him in cash, okay. But in GPP, if he doesn't get a shutout, he's probably not going to be on the winning lineup. So for me, it's tough for me to pay $8,300 for Matt Murray. On the flip side, Antti Ranta at $6,900 is an interesting play for me. He is familiar with the Penguins, being that the past few years he was on the Rangers. He is 6,900, nice, but Pittsburgh is just dynamic offensively. If you're fading Pittsburgh and you want to take a flyer in a GPP, you're going to get him at what, like 1-2%. He has a good game. You can leverage the field. Again, I don't recommend it, but if you are making 20, 30 lineups and you have a couple of Antti Ranta lineups, I'm not going to say you're crazy. I'm going to say I hope Pittsburgh does nothing because I'm fading them, and Ranta leverage the field for you. So let's move on to the next game of the night. We have the Florida Panthers traveling to Carolina to face the Hurricanes. Scott Darling against Roberto Luongo. Jeff Skinner is on a good line for once in his life. Now, hopefully, Mike Hoffman will be on a good line the next time the Senators play, which I think is going to be Friday in Sweden, but we'll get to that. The Skinner line, definitely one of my favorite plays tonight. They're under 15,000 the full stack. Yes, I like Carolina line as well. Jordan Staal line definitely can go there as well. I don't think Roberto Luongo is not the same player he was when he was with Vancouver or even his early Panthers years. My preferred play is the Skinner line. They're a little bit cheaper, but Carolina one definitely in play. You want to use Justin Falk on the blue line, 4,900. That's a decent play. Jacob Slavin, 4,000, or even Noah Hannafin at 3,500 is a nice value play. I do have some interest in Scott Darling. He's 7,600. I think he's a decent GPP play. The Panthers are a very good offensive team. They're much better at home, though. I think, even Darling has been struggling. I think you can make a case for him. On the flip side, I do like Florida's top line tonight. It's not one of my elite plays. I think, they're always in play because of how good they are. Barkov is becoming one of the elite centers in the NHL. He's with Huberdeau and Dadonov. They always can produce a ton of scoring chances. The thing for me is I don't really like picking on Carolina, especially when they're at home. They can match up the way they want to. They're a sound defensive team. Darling is better than Cam Ward. But, I think Florida one is in play, not an elite play, but they are a good play. Ekblad or Yandel on the blue line. Luongo at 7,100 is also interesting for me. I think Carolina is a very good team. Sometimes they do struggle to score some goals. I think, if you're using the Panthers, I think Luongo at 7,100 is a okay GPP play. You kind of know what you're signing up for. It could turn real ugly real quick, but also, he used to be an elite goalie. Those elite goalies can turn it up and stand on their head. What's he doing up there? Throwing stuff around. He can, crank it up once in a while and still have a great game. So I think, Luongo's a nice GPP flyer. So let's move on to the next game of the night. All these are 7 o'clock starts, by the way. There aren't too many late games, which is nice. The Nashville Predators traveling to Columbus to face the Blue Jackets. The Columbus Blue Jackets are on a back-to-back after losing to the Rangers 5-3. They did travel home. It is a short flight from New York to Columbus. It's probably going to be Pekka Rinne. It's probably going to be Korpisalo. Neither of these coaches like to announce goalies because they're douchebags. But I don't really have too much interest in this game as a whole. I don't really like using the Predators on the road. And Scott Hartnell is still on the top line. I think, he's a decent value. He's under 4,000. Cam Atkinson did get activated off the IR today. I think, if you are going to use a line, I think you can use Columbus one. Depends what it's going to be. Torts kind of just, mixed up his lines, didn't tell anybody. I'm going to assume it's going to be Foligno or Wenberg with Panarin and Atkinson. I think that is the line to use. You can use either Werenski or Jones on the blue line. I think both are good plays. Werenski, has more correlation to power play 1. From the Nashville side, if you want to use Nashville 1, okay, they are cheap. They're a little over 14,000 because of Hartnell. Again, I'm not a huge fan of using them on the road. I think there are better spots tonight, even though Columbus is on the back-to-back. Maybe that bumps them up a little bit for me, but personal preference, I like to avoid Nashville on the road. If you want to use someone like Forsberg, because it is Tuesday, if you still believe in that narrative, you can single bullet him or mini him with Yossi. That makes sense. You want to use Victor Arvidsson, cool. Yossi, Subban, decent plays on the blue line. Korpisalo doesn't really interest me too much at his price. I wish he was cheaper. If he was like 74, 7,300 on DK, I'd have more interest. But again, I don't like targeting teams on a back-to-back. Pekka Rinne is interesting for me at 7,200. Even though I'm not high on Nashville tonight, I think this is a winnable game. Pekka Rinne at 7,200 is a nice value. I think you can use him in GPPs. If it's him, if it is Saros who likes to collapse in the third period, I have minimal interest at 7,000. So let's move on to the only 7:30 start tonight. We have the Vegas Golden Knights traveling to Montreal to face the Canadiens. Was it confirmed it was Roy Halladay? I know it was his plane, but was it confirmed him? Either way, it's sad. It was confirmed him. That's sad. That's brutal. Ugh. Yeah. So let's talk some hockey to keep our minds off the sadness that is the world. This world sucks. The Vegas Golden Knights back-to-back in Montreal. It's going to be Maxime Lagacé or Legacy, whatever he goes by. Every announced team calls him something different. He's going to be going on a back-to-back, though, after playing in Toronto last night. I think Montreal 2, Alex Galchenyuk, Jonathan Drouin, and Arturi Lehkonen are an amazing value play tonight. I think they're going to be chalky. They're a little bit cheaper than the Islanders 2 tonight. Let you fit in whoever you want. Maybe they'll have a little bit lower ownership because Max Pacioretty isn't on the line. But, Galchenyuk's 3,800. Line's super cheap. Thing with Montreal is they're bipolar. You never know if they're going to score 0 goals or 6. But this is a primetime matchup for them with Vegas on a back-to-back and their fourth-string goalie going on a second straight night. If you want to use the Pacioretty line, I think Lehkonen sees power play time. I think I like him a little bit more, just based off of that. But, Galchenyuk is under 4,000. I don't mind either as a one-off. If you can fit Shea Weber on the blue line, I think he is the way to go. He's really the only... Yeah, Lehkonen's on power play 1, Galchenyuk on power play 2. For that reason, I give Lehkonen the slight edge. If you can fit Shea Weber, Galchenyuk's a more... I would say Galchenyuk is a safer play in cash. He's 3,800. Lehkonen's more of a GPP one-off for me. If you can fit Shea Weber, do it. 6,400. He's really the only Montreal defenseman that I am interested in. Charlie Lindgren. The fuck? The dude, 38 save shutout? The only Montreal Canadian to stop all the pucks since the Reagan administration. I think he's in play tonight at 7,500. Yeah, he was stone cold against Chicago. I think, he's in play. I think he's going to be chalky. I would proceed with caution as he is Charlie Lindgren. I will say I watched that game. He does look like he is an NHL goalie, whatever that means. there's some people who just like kind of flop around and don't really know where they are. Um, but Charlie Lindgren looked like he belonged. I don't know if that's just my eyes deceiving me, but he did look talented. I think he's going to be chalky tonight. This is a good spot for him. No interest in Legacy, whatever. I think you can use Lindgren in cash, yeah. I think he's going to be the popular cash play as well. I can get on board with Lindgren in cash. So let's move on to the two late games of the night. We have the Vancouver Canucks traveling to Calgary to face the Flames. The Canucks are on a back-to-back. Lindgren greater than Allen in cash, same price. I have a slightly into Lindgren just because he's home, but I do like Jake Allen. I think either are fine. Jacob Markstrom went last night. I don't think he's going to go on the back-to-back. Anders Nielsen's expecting a child, so it could be the NHL debut of Thatcher Demko. I do like Thatcher Demko, but not in this spot, especially with Vancouver on the road back-to-back. I'm not really high on anybody in this game, really. When your wife is pregnant, both of you are expecting, you both get pregnancy brain. I can attest to that because I have a little one running around. In the third trimester, it's all the same. It's like being twins. It's creepy as fuck. But I didn't have to push my son out of my belly, no. I'm not really high on anybody in this game. More middle of the road plays for me. I know people are going to be on Calgary one tonight because they're home. It's Vancouver on the back-to-back. They're probably going to get the Bo Horvat line, which is meh defensively, but Jágr is back. He's on the third line. Who knows if they're going to move him up to the first line as the game goes on. Again, I'm not in love with the pace in this matchup. I think it's going to be kind of just choppy in the neutral zone. If you want to use Calgary 1 or the 3M line, I have a slight lean to the 3M line just because they're cheaper. I know they get more defensive zone starts, but it's not like they're going up against, world beaters after the Horvat line. Sorry, I don't know what happened, but for me, Calgary 2, Calgary 1, middle of the road plays for me. I don't really have too much interest in Vancouver tonight. I like him less than Calgary. I'm just not a huge fan of this game. In net, Mike Smith at 8,100. That definitely puts Mike Smith in play. In cash and GPPs, again, 8,100 is a little too pricey for me, especially for Mike Smith, the generic goalie. It is a good spot for him. I think he's going to have ownership, but if you're not spending down, if you want to spend up a goalie, I prefer Mike Smith at 8,100 to Matt Murray at 8,300. If it is Thatcher Demko for Vancouver, 6,700, that is extremely cheap. I think you can take a flyer on him. He is a rookie. He would be making his NHL debut. It could get ugly, but I think he is talented, and he eventually will be an NHL goalie full-time. I don't know if it's going to be in Vancouver. I think they're really going to try to push Jacob Markstrom to see if he can start in this league full-time. But at 6,700, Demko, worthy of a GPP flyer. Just, what you're signing up for. Could get pretty brutal. So let's go to the only 10 o'clock game tonight, the only really late start. The LA Kings traveling to Anaheim. Super long travel to face the Ducks. Getzlaf is still out. I think he has to get face surgery. Maybe he should get some hair implants while he is under the knife. Kessler is still out. For the Kings, Carter's obviously still out. This game is kind of meh as well for me. Getz is out for 2 months. Yeah, so That sucks. Maybe he'll come back with hair. Kessler is skating, but he's still out, so they're just brutal down the middle. I like. I don't want to keep saying I like LA1. I like Kopitar. I don't like Dustin Brown or Iafallo. Yeah, you can make the case for Iafallo as a punt because he is still really cheap. So if you want to go like Kopitar, Iafallo, and Drew Doughty, that makes sense. I just Dustin Brown, like, come on. They took the captain. They took the C off his vest or off his sweater. He's still on the team. Meh. Yeah, the second line, I think there's better values, but you can go there. They don't see too much ice time 5-on-5. That's the problem I have with them. If they saw like 14, 15, even 16, 17 minutes a night, I'd be much more high on them. You know, Kempe, Toffoli, Pearson, it's a nice line. They are around the same price as Montreal too, around the same price as New York Islanders too. If you want a late hammer value play, I think you can go there. Again, I just wish they saw more time on ice. If you are going to use the second line, you know, Muzzin or Alec Martinez is the preferred play. If you're going to use Kopitar, I think Doughty is the preferred play there. On the Ducks side, they're just brutally banged up. Fowler's out, Getzlaf is out, Eves is out, Kessler is out. The fuck? I'm not a big Ducks guy anyway. Yeah, and they did put Toffoli with Kopitar. Yeah, they kind of mix. Yeah, I hope that stays that way, that Kopitar stays up, or Toffoli stays up with Kopitar. That's something to look for going forward. Toffoli is one of my favorite players. From a Ducks perspective, I have very little interest in the Ducks. You want to use Raquel and Perry on the top line, if that's even still the line. I don't even know what they're going to do. Go for it. Again, I'm not a huge Ducks guy. I'm a big fan of Jonathan Quick tonight. I think this is a good spot for him. Quick is 8,000, so again, I'm not a huge fan of spending up. But I think, you know, he is cheaper than Mike Smith. He's cheaper than Matt Murray. This is a good spot for him. Johnny Gibson at 7,300. I think you can make a case in GPPs. Not very high on him, but again, I'm not that high on the Kings. If you need the salary, I think you could go Gibson. You know, it's just one of those things, you know, you're probably looking at like giving up 2 goals on 25 shots. Like if you knew the Kings were going to get 35, 40 shots on that, I think Gibson's more in play, but Gibson also can give up 4 goals on 17 shots. But again, if you think this is a winnable game for the Ducks, they are at home. Gibson's 7,300. You could take a flyer on him in a GPP. Whew. I love talking. So that covers the 9 games. Anyone have any questions? I'm going to eat this Take 5 bar. Yes. Eichel as a one-off in cash is definitely okay. The Rangers suck, but they won. They got bailed out. Converted on the power play. TSA line together in Carolina. Yeah, I like that, but I prefer the Skinner line. Wouldn't blame me if you want the TSA line in Carolina, though. I just like Skinner because he shoots the puck. Yeah, Derek Ryan is pretty useless, but he's cheap, lets you do other things. If you want to leave him off, you know, Skinner. I always say Skinner is more of a one-off play for me. Cheap center, GPP, Reinhart or Sissons? I'd probably go Reinhart, neither ideal. Who's 2,500 punt play? What was that? Let me click the screen here. Mikuel. I don't even know who that is. Oh, Carolina defenseman, right. I don't know if you need that much salary relief tonight, do you? Yeah, he doesn't play much. Um, I'd, if you need a punt, like 3,100, I really prefer Matt Benning. If you need the extra 600 because you're trying to jam in somebody, that guy is 2,500. Yeah. Um, Listen, for 2,500, how much are you really expecting on DK? If he blocks a shot and has a shot on goal, I think he hits value. Gives you one DK point. I think if you're going to use that 600 to get in someone like Tavares or McDavid, I think you definitely can do that. Even though he only sees 8-9 minutes a night, chances are if you're playing someone for 2,500, what are you expecting realistically anyway? Half a point. I even thought about just rostering a 2,500 player on a couple slates who's not even playing. Just take the 0 so I can fit in someone else. But if this guy does get 10 minutes a night and he blocks a couple shots by accident, one DK point, I think he hits value for you. What's my hot take of the night? Hot take of the night. Montreal scores over 5 goals. I don't know if that's really a hot take or not. Personally, is St. Louis one my favorite tonight? From a personal standpoint, I think I like Buffalo more. From an actual standpoint, I think Pittsburgh's a better play, but I'm fading them just because I always do, and they're going to have ownership. But Buffalo, St. Louis, and the Islanders are my favorite plays. And someone said something. Favorite high price stack again, Buffalo, St. Louis, Islanders. Pittsburgh obviously is in play. Just ownership is going to be really high. All right, so make sure thoughts on the Nashville power play. Again, I'm more, just from a personal preference, I like to use them when they're at home. Definitely can use the Nashville power play. I love Forsberg. He is pricey though. Johansson does bring the price down a little bit, but Yossi is expensive as well. I think there's better ways to go about tonight. But again, if you're on Nashville, I'm not going to talk you off them just because of what I do personally. I think they're a decent play tonight. I just don't like to use them when they're on the road. Whether that's, a bad bias, I don't know. But it is what it is. But make sure you check out our premium features. Adam's line matching article is the nuts. It is awesome. We have projections from Emmanuel Perry. We have Optimizer, one for cash, one for GPP. We have a premium chat. You can get it for as low as $9.99 a week. I think you definitely have to check that out. Edmonton 1 outscores New York Islanders 1. I think it's a wash. Thank you. I'll lean Islanders just because they're home. But yeah, so I will be on Twitter. I will be in chat in an hour, so you can hit me up there. I'll be back tomorrow. I think it's a shorter slate, but we can rock out. We can talk about some strategy stuff. We can do whatever. So we'll see you in chat. We'll see you tomorrow. Good luck, everybody, tonight. Hope you guys win big. Hopefully you can send me some screenshots. Even if you don't want to give me the credit, you can send screenshots. I like seeing people win, especially people who tune in. I don't have to take the credit. You want to thank whoever you thank is cool. But I hope you all win money, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.